Joshua chapter 1, and we're going to go from 11 down to 18 tonight, Lord willing. Joshua chapter 11, or chapter 1, verses 11 through 18. Recall now, Joshua has been commissioned. He's been ordained as the leader of Israel, the theocratic leader. And actually, he's both the military and the theocratic leader. But he's been tapped by the Lord to replace Moses. Moses has been dead. They mourned him for 30 days. God comes to Joshua now and tells him to get up and get across the river, all right, to prepare to go across. So they finally come full circle. Remember, the first time they got to that riverbank, what happened? Back out into the wilderness for their lack of faith. And there they wandered for how long? 40 years. That's a long time, isn't it? And it was long enough for all of that generation to have died out in the wilderness. And like we've said many times, if you could scrape that wilderness down to their level, you'd find a bunch of graves out in the wilderness of those Jews that were buried out there for their lack of faith, for their complaining and murmuring against Moses, and for their stubbornness against God. And you'll find that's what happens when you're stubborn against God. You'll end up out in the wilderness dead. And you think about that. Or you end up in when you die without God. Hell. Okay. And then ultimately the lake of fire. All right, let's read verse number... let's start in 11 just to help you with the context. Pass through the host and command the people, saying, prepare you victuals. All right. For within 3 days ye shall do what? All right. And I like that phrase, Passover. Remember, we've seen Passover before. And 40 years ago, when Israel came out of Exodus, what was that Passover about? Right? Death of the firstborn in Egypt. Okay? All the firstborn beasts and all the firstborn children in the land of Egypt would perish that night. And also, additionally, if there was a Jew that said, no, I ain't going to do it, guess what would happen? Their firstborn would be dead too. They had to obey the Lord. So they struck the doorposts with blood. And it was, you would stop and think about it. They struck it on the left one, they struck it on the right one, they struck it overhead. And then you can imagine as they put that blood overhead, it would drip down, and then you've got the form of a cross. And that points to the cross and the shedding of the blood for the remission of sin. If that blood was on the doorpost, what happened? That's where the name comes from, Passover. The death angel would pass over and go on to the next. All right, so the word Passover, now here it is. He said, notice what he says, ye shall. Underline that shall. Anytime you see shall, what's that mean? Exactly. It's going to happen. When God says shall, it shall happen. All right? It said, over this Jordan, to go in to possess the land which the Lord your God giveth to you to what? Possess it. It's your possession. God's giving it to you. You're going to go in. All right? So the command has been given. Joshua commands the people to do their part now. The Lord had sworn to give them the land. Look at verse 6. Be strong of courage, for unto this people shalt thou divide for an inheritance the land which I swear unto their fathers to what? So the Lord had given them this land. Okay? He had given them the deed for this land. All right? So he's promised to give it. And think about this. Who's making the promise? God. So if God promised it, what's that mean? It's so. Okay? It's so. God has never broken a promise. Now, how many times have men broken their promises to God? Well, I'm glad God's not like that. God's immutable, unchanging, and what he says goes. What he says shall happen will happen. He has been providing now, think about this, for the 40 years they're in the wilderness, he's been providing them with food and water. Stop and think about that. Food and water the whole trip. Now think about that manna, okay? Now, you don't hear about these young ones complaining about the manna, do you? No, they kind of grew up on it, didn't they? And they kind of like it. It's enough to satisfy you. They said it was kind of sweet tasting. So if we had a sweet tooth, I guess they'd probably satisfy our sweet tooth too. All right? And it was nutritious enough for them to live on for 40 years. Think about that. Every morning they go out and pick up enough for their family, and then it would feed them all day long. And then the next morning they do the same, and then they pick up double on the day before Sabbath so that they could have enough to not go pick up any during that Sabbath day. So here now, they're to prepare victuals. Now this is different. They're not to get manna, pick up manna in the morning. They're supposed to prepare victuals. Now what's victuals? Right. Dinner, supper, lunch, the 3 meals, breakfast. Prepare you 3 days worth of food. All right. Now it's not going to take 3 days to cross that Jordan, is it? No, it's not going to take them long to cross that Jordan at all. Even though it's wide and it's overflowed in its banks, it's not going to take them 3 days to cross that place. But the idea is that they have to have enough food prepared and ready to serve when they get across, and they have to start engaging the enemy because they know the enemy's going to come on them, and they know they have to have food to eat and be prepared and strong for the battles to come. All right, so think about that. They have a responsibility. God's required of them to prepare for this journey that they're about to commence. And how do you prepare? Ladies, get that food ready because you're going to need it. And get 3 days worth of victuals prepared. Now remember, when they go into the promised land, there's plenty of stuff on that side of the river, isn't there? You stop and think about it. It's the land flowing with what? That means everything's there. I mean, rabbits, squirrels, possum, whatever they could eat. Okay, it's there. They didn't eat possum, but they could if they wanted to. So they're told to prepare, and they prepare and are ready. And now that manna, guess what? When they cross that river, what's going to happen to the manna? Shut off, just like that. They don't need it anymore. God's put them in the land of milk and honey. He gives them plenty of resources in the land of milk and honey to sustain themselves while they're occupying the land, while they're beginning to clean out all of the occupants, while they're declaring war with these different places and wiping out these cities, and then they're moving into these places. All right? And then once they get done with fighting and displacing the enemy, Joshua sits down, one of his last acts, and they cast lots. And they cast lots for each tribe. Each possession will be casted the lot on, and whoever got the lot, that's who got the inheritance. It was theirs and their families forever. And it passed down by family and by inheritance. All right? So they're to prepare. Now look at verses 12 and 13. And to the Reubenites and to the Gadites and to the half the tribe of Manasseh spake Joshua, saying, all right, now this is a select group of tribes, isn't it? The Reubenites and the Gadites. Those that are the children of Reuben and those that are children of Gad. All right, that's a weird name, isn't it? Gad. All right. So these two tribes, and then it says the half tribe of Manasseh. Half of them wanted to go across, and the other half didn't. All right. So we're reminded here, and Joshua goes before them. It says, and to the half tribe of Manasseh spake Joshua, saying. So he goes to these two and a half tribes, or 3 tribes technically. He goes to them and says, remember, verse 13, the word which Moses, the servant of the Lord, commanded you, saying, the Lord your God hath given you rest and hath given you this land. Your wives, your little ones, and your cattle shall remain in the land which Moses gave you. How? On this side of Jordan, not after they crossed, but on the other side of Jordan. And they wanted that land. Do you know why they wanted it? Why did they want it? It was good cattle land, grazing land. All right. They've seen all the opportunities. I guess the Jordan River made it fertile in that valley through there, and they said, "Ooh, this is the place we need to be." Well, they cut themselves short of a blessing, I think. Going into the promised land, you've got the protection of your brothers and your kinfolk. You got all that going for you, and you've got the rich and fertile land of the promised land. But they settled for something less. All right? Now, we want to look at that. Let's go, hold your finger here, or your place here, and go back to Numbers. Now, let's look at the transaction that took place here between Moses and these tribes. Book of Numbers, chapter number 32. 32. Let's start in verse 1. Now the children of Reuben and the children of Gad had a very great multitude of what? There you go. Okay. They come out with a lot of cattle. One thing about cattle, what they got to have? Right. Lots of grass. Okay. The more cattle you have, the more grass is required. Logic, right? Okay. And they see this flat land, pasture land, and they say, "Ooh-wee, we want this." So look at the deal they come up with Moses in this chapter. All right? The children of Reuben, the children of Gad had a very great multitude of cattle. And when they saw the land of Jazer and the land of Gilead, that behold, the place was a place for cattle. See that? So evidently there's a lot of grasslands there in that place. So they come up with an idea. Verse 2. The children of Gad and the children of Reuben came and spake unto Moses and to Eleazar the priest and unto the princes of the congregation, saying. So they called for an elders meeting. Okay, the princes of the congregation meant all of the leaders of each tribe would to come and to have this discussion. All right. Adaroth and Dibon and Jazer and Nimrah and Heshbon and Elealeh, I can't pronounce that one, and Shebam and Nebo and Beon. Even the country which the Lord smote before the congregation of Israel is a land for cattle, and thy servants have cattle. Logical, right? All right. Wherefore, said they, if we have found grace in thy sight, let this land be given unto thy servants for a possession, and bring us not over Jordan. They said, we don't want to go over there. We want to stay here. And Moses said unto the children of Gad and the children of Reuben, shall your brethren go to war, and shall ye sit here? Good question, huh? He said, we're going to cross over into this land, and we're going to have a fight on our hands. And here we're going to be fighting for life and death, and you're going to sit back on the sidelines on the other side of Jordan and sit there doing nothing, twiddling your thumbs, grazing your cattle? Moses said, no. He said, and wherefore discourage ye the heart of the children of Israel from going over into the land which the Lord hath given them? He said, that you take away 2.5 tribes from the manpower, what's that going to do? It's going to discourage you and weaken you, isn't it? Okay. He said, and where it says, thus did your fathers when I sent them from Kadesh Barnea to see that land. When they went up into the valley of Eshcol and saw the land, they discouraged the heart of the children of Israel that they should not go into the land which the Lord had given them. And he's talking about the 10 spies. And the Lord's anger was kindled the same time, and he sware, saying, surely none of the men that came up out of Egypt from 20 years old and upward shall see the land which I swore unto Abraham, unto Isaac, and unto Jacob, because they have not what? Wholly followed me. And he's speaking to those that died in the wilderness, and he mentions 2 exceptions, though, save Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, the Kenizzite, and Joshua, the son of Nun, for they have what? Now, who's this saying this? Right. Moses is speaking for God, saying, they have wholly followed the Lord. And the Lord's anger was kindled against Israel, and he made them wander in the wilderness 40 years until all the generation that had done evil in the sight of the Lord was consumed. And behold, ye are risen up in your father's stead, and increase of sinful men, to augment yet the fierce anger of the Lord toward Israel. If you turn away from after him, he will yet again leave them in the wilderness, and ye shall destroy all this people. And they came not near unto him, and said, We will build sheepfolds here for our cattle, and cities for our little ones. But we ourselves will go, what? Ready armed before the children of Israel. Now get a handle on that. What's it saying? There you go. We're going to get up in front. We'll be the three tribes that are up front protecting and going to battle first. Now, y'all know who the front guys are. They're going to get the hardest part of the battle, aren't they? So they're volunteering to be the point or the guard or the lookout. They're volunteering to be the advanced attackers on these enemies. Okay? So he said, we're going to do that. We ourselves will go ready armed before the children of Israel until we have brought them into their place, and our little ones shall dwell in the fenced cities because of the inhabitants of the land. We will not return unto our houses until the children of Israel have inherited every man his inheritance. You see that, what they're promising? We're not going to leave until everybody's got their portion. Then we're going to go back home, come back to this place, which is probably a pretty good deal, but they're still shorting themselves, aren't they, from the blessings of the promised land. For we shall not inherit with them on yonder side Jordan or forward, because our inheritance is fallen to us on this side Jordan eastward. And Moses said unto them, If ye will do this thing, if you will go armed before the Lord to war, and will go all of you armed over Jordan before the Lord, until he hath driven out his enemies from before him, and the land be subdued before the Lord, then afterward ye shall return and be guiltless before the Lord and before Israel, and this land shall be your possession before the Lord. All right? He said, if you do that, everything's hunky-dory. But look at next verse. There's a warning carried with it. But if ye will not do so, behold, ye have sinned against the Lord. And what's he say? And be sure your sin will find you out. Be sure payday will come. That's what he's saying. Judgment will come. All right? So he says, build your cities for your little ones and folds for your sheep, and do that which proceedeth out of your mouth. The children of Gad and the children of Reuben spake unto Moses, saying, Thy servants will do as my Lord commandeth. Our little ones, our wives, our flocks, and all our cattle shall be there in the cities of Gilead. But thy servants will pass over every man armed for war before the Lord to battle, as my Lord saith. So concerning them Moses commanded Eleazar the priest, and Joshua the son of Nun, and the chief of the fathers of the tribes of the children of Israel. And Moses said unto them, If the children of Gad and the children of Reuben will pass with you over Jordan, every man armed to battle before the Lord, and the land shall be subdued before you, then ye shall give them the land of Gilead for a possession. All right? So Moses makes sure that his replacement knows, and the chief of the people know, this deal has been struck, right? He said it's a conditional deal, though. There's conditions upon it. They have to fulfill their promise, and that is to lead the battles in the occupied, or in the land that they're about to occupy. They're going to leave their young ones and their wives and all that and build cities in Gilead, and there they're going to leave their stuff, and then they're going to go fight the battles in front of the army. So they all agreed to it, and they lived up to their portion of the deal. Now, go back to Joshua. So we see a conditional grant, don't we? God allowed it. Moses allowed it. The chief of the people knew about all of it. It was not done in a backdoor transaction or bribery or anything like that. It was an above-board transaction where one party agreed to the other party that they would fulfill their portion of the contract, and thus they would be free to go back once they're done and inherit their land on the other side of Jordan. So the other side of Jordan, and the land of Gilead, would belong to Reuben and Gad and the half tribe of Manasseh. All right. Now, let's go back to chapter 1 of Joshua and look what it says, verse 13. Here's Joshua reminding these 2.5 tribes. Remember the word which Moses, the servant of the Lord, commanded you, saying, the Lord your God hath given you rest and hath given you this land. Your wives, your little ones, and your cattle shall remain in the land which Moses gave you on what side? This side Jordan, okay? That's before they crossed. All right, so Gilead was on the other side of Jordan. All right, and he says, which the Lord your God giveth them, then ye shall return into the land of your possession and enjoy it, which Moses the Lord's servant gave you on this side Jordan toward the sun rising. And they answered Joshua, saying, all that thou commandest us, what? All right, so what are they saying? Right, we had an agreement with Moses, and now we're honoring that agreement with you. Moses is dead, so he can't enforce the agreement, can he? But he gave that pass on to Joshua and the high priest. Now he says, all that thou commandest us, we will do, and whithersoever thou sendest us, we will go. In other words, you're going to put us up at the head of the line, that's where we'll go. Wherever you want us to go, that's what we'll do. So that means they're going to be what? Right, they're going to be in front, and they're going to obey the commands of who? The Lord and Joshua, exactly. All right, if Joshua says, you guys get in front and start attacking, they're going to get in front and start attacking. They agree and have recommitted themselves. Now remember, the other generations passed away. This is a new generation. But they recognize this agreement between Moses and their fathers. They recognize that agreement, and they say, we're going to honor that agreement. We're going to do exactly what our fathers promised that they would do. It said, according as we have hearkened unto Moses in all things, so will we hearken unto who? Thee, Joshua. Now they're speaking back to Joshua. He said, as we promised Moses, so we're going to do and listen to you. Now, I think about that. That would give Joshua a little encouragement right off the bat, won't it? Remember, God's had to encourage him a little bit. And here now is these half of the tribe, 2.5 tribes, have said, yep, we're going to follow you. So he didn't have to beat them. He didn't have to force them. They willingly, God gave them the heart to say, we will follow you, Joshua, and we will obey you, and we will obey whatever God tells us to do through you. We're with thee. Look at that. It says, only the Lord thy God be with thee as he was with Moses. Whosoever he be that doth rebel against thy commandment, and will not hearken unto thy words, in all that thou commandest him, he shall what? Right? Look at the penalty imposed. Willingly, voluntarily applied here. What they're saying. Look what they're saying. If one of us rebels and don't do what they're supposed to do and they decide they're going home, what's going to happen to him? Right. He'll be killed. He'll be put to death. He shall be put to death. No option there. He shall be put to death. So desertion or failure to obey the orders of Joshua meant that they would be put to death. And they're binding themselves to this agreement. Now notice the last part. It says, hearken unto the words, and all that thou commandest him, he shall be put to death. Now look at this phrase again, the very last phrase in the chapter. Only be what? The same words that the Lord said several times. Now here's 3 of the tribes saying, be strong and of a good courage. Now they knew Joshua was strong. They knew Joshua was courageous in battle. They knew that. It's not got to do with that. It's got to do with Joshua following God and obeying God just like Moses did, and that God would bring him through. So be strong, Joshua. Stand strong. And you think about that, how encouraging that would be. God gave them this phrase here to say. He put it in their hearts to say this to them so that it would in fact confirm to Joshua, hey, they're going to listen to me for a change. Not like Moses, they're going to listen to me. You think about how important that is when you're first taking over. When you're taking over a bunch of people that's been out in the wilderness for 40 years, and boy, every one of them murmured and bickered and complained against Moses, didn't they? Boy, that was tough on Moses. And Moses paid the price for it, for his anger, remember? He didn't get to go in. And here's these people getting ready to go in. But all of them are dead now. You got a new generation, and they have an opportunity to do right. And it looks like they're going to do right, because here they are encouraging Joshua, we're going to obey what you say. If anybody doesn't, boom, they're getting stoned. They're going to be put to death. And we're going to follow you. You be strong and of a good courage, because we're going to follow you. So here they are now. Joshua's got everything set up. And now they put their allegiance onto the shoulders of Joshua. Now that's saying something for this group of people, isn't it? So we're going to follow you, and if somebody don't, guess what? They'll be put to death. So now God's got their hearts right. They're all in the right frame of mind. They're all unified. They're not going to buck Joshua. They're not going to fight him because he's the leader now. They're not jealous over his leadership. Remember, that happened several times in the in the Exodus part, where they tried to usurp Moses' authority. Remember that? The sons of Korah, remember him and his friend decided they could do it just as good as Moses and Aaron could. And what did God show them? The pit of hell. Remember, the earth opened up and swallowed them and then closed back up. They went and got a straight ticket down to hell. And then you see here now, this people, though, they're more willing to serve God, and they've sat here and obligated their tribes to do exactly as their parents had obligated to do to Moses. So Moses has agreed to the deal. And Joshua was there when he agreed to it. And now Joshua has to go and reconfirm this deal to those tribes and say, all right, this is what your parents promised. This is what you're going to do. And they said, we're following you. We're going to do it. And if we don't, put them to death. All right. So now Joshua's got cooperation with three tribes anyway. So he's got cooperation of three tribes, and we'll see they all get united together in the battle. You'll see this process taking shape. In chapter number 2, we'll see the progress. And Joshua's going to try sending spies in again. So look at chapter 2, study ahead, and see what Joshua does in preparation for this crossing over Jordan. So go ahead and read chapter 2, get started on that. Lord willing, next time we'll pick up with that chapter. All right, let's all stand.